when we disconnect from that person, place, thing, subject, workplace, something like that, when we have the courage to do that, we actually are only reconnecting with ourselves. So, that was the main thing that I wanted to talk about.
Hello, my name is Mate, and you have tuned in to the 10th episode of the In-Betweeners Checkup. I am here today with Ben Jackson, who has very graciously devoted some of his time and braved the weather to come and have a bit of a chat with myself. I first met Ben briefly, I think it was a couple of years ago now. You did a talk on health, which really I took a lot away from, to be fair, because you had a few different people speaking, but there was a real focus on, I guess, looking at the bigger picture and not just targeting certain elements. And, we kind of bumped into each other a few times over the last few years, and kind of just, there seems to be more connection, I guess, between us, which has been really good. So I'm going to hand it over to Ben so he can give us a bit more of a breakdown about his background, and then we can get into a bit of a chat.
Cool. G'day, guys. So my name's Ben Jackson. I've been living here in Papamoa for coming up 4.5 years. And before that, I was living around the world for 9, and in various places, Europe, Perth, did a lot of travel through Central and South America, and got some very valuable life experience, which was super invaluable. And grew up over the hill in the Waikato, and studied at Otago University, where I got furthered my education in the health and well-being and sports science stuff from a university education background.
In terms of, I guess, looking at that health space as an area of interest, what kind of got you looking at that to begin with, at least?
So at school, kind of zooming out on my report cards, I was doing very well at physical education, at advanced physical education, but not so well at maths, and probably just scraping it through with English. And science I enjoyed the science side of things, but when I was kind of, as I made it through 7th form and thinking about the year ahead, lots of friends applying for different universities, and I wasn't quite sure which direction I wanted to go in. I hadn't really found my tribe of brothers and sisters yet, even though I tried pretty hard at high school. I kind of had a natural ability for sport, but then I'd hang out with the pot smokers out the back, and so didn't really find where my vibe was yet. So post 7th form, I went to Waikato Polytech and did half a semester on a farming course. Because at the time I was living on a dairy farm, so I enjoyed the nature side of things. And then kind of was like, oh, what am I doing? And then went to 2nd semester Waikato University to do their sport and leisure studies. But then after growing up in Waikato, was getting a bit of a calling to kind of branch out. And I had probably one of my best friends at the high school I was at in Hamilton, Hillcrest, had just completed his first year at Otago Uni in phys ed. And so my parents actually bought me a flight down to Otago in that gap year for me to go and experience the culture down there. And I loved it. I met probably one of my best friends now on that weekend, and once I got down to had that first year at Otago, I really connected with some of my brothers that I have to this very day, that we love each other very dearly. So there was a lot of affinity with that direction. The education side of things, as you can imagine, being at Otago was The first year was pretty wild.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Um, and then towards my third year, got called into like when you do a Bachelor of Physical Education degree, it's like it sounds amazing, but then which direction are you going in post that? It's either you go into be a really high qualified personal trainer, you get into coaching in some aspects, generally in regional sport councils,
Yep.
or you do post grad 1 year teaching and go into an age group teaching role.
Okay.
I wasn't getting called to be a teacher. I thought I had more to offer at that time. And so in my fourth year, I got given an opportunity to work at a boutique personal training studio in Dunedin, which gave me my first exposure to one-on-one training, not in a gym-based setup, but a real kind of high-end corporate setup, so limited equipment, really one-on-one mindset and training side of things. So that was the beginning of me looking into one-on-one coaching, not from a gym setting.
Yeah. And I guess in terms of that experience and the health journey, how have you kind of been able to take that and I guess put it into your own life?
I guess having a natural ability in sport, that was part of my programming from such a young age. So I got that affinity for team-based sports, and not only did I get that camaraderie within playing in a field, but also that camaraderie outside of that. So I felt like I could get that social connection with my teammates outside of that. I saw the power in that. When I decided to move to Tauranga 4.5 years ago, it was in that February, March time, and I only had my sister living here at the time, so I was like, right, how do I meet people? Perfect, go join a club. So joined up with Otamoto Football Club, and automatically within the first couple of weeks, you've got 25 to 30 potential friends, not just teammates, and professionals in their area in the workspace. So made network connections that way, and I like the power of how movement, in a sense, if you tune into what your movement is that you enjoy, and you go out there and find those groups of people, that it gives you that sense of a bit of a tribe network.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, not so much now, to be fair, but I used to get out a bit on the dance floor and stuff, and when you go out regularly, I guess you start to kind of see the same people again and again, and you can sometimes you kind of create connections, and other times you don't. But it was kind of interesting to have that dance tribe, if you want to and stuff at times. But I guess once that kind of goes, the family life kicks in and stuff. It's kind of like, well, what other elements can you kind of come in? And I guess it's been quite interesting in terms of having a wee one. And yes, you shouldn't have as much time as you once did, but how that's kind of helped build a social network for us, because of the fact that you have your postnatal classes, and you have your I can't think of it's like your mother-child classes and stuff, and your daycares and all those areas where you have those common connections with children has allowed us to build our network a lot more effectively there, when, to be fair, we didn't really set around any real intentions around how to build it, which probably delayed the process overall moving here. I guess, have you talked about your travels and stuff, and were there any times where you struggled to form a tribe in those different places?
Yeah, actually, so friends of it, like we all, as a group of guy mates, we left Dunedin and we travelled through Central America, and then the plan was to spend a certain amount of time there, then move to London to work. So that was great. We had that. We were lads at university. We were lads over in Central America, and we knew we were flying to UK, and we knew that Central America was holiday time, and Europe was going to be working time to save up for another South American, holiday time. But so when I decided, after 5 years of that kind of European South American adventure, my girlfriend at the time and we decided that we wanted to kind of, we were walking into another European winter, and it was like, coming from New Zealand, coming from the beach, it was like, oh, I need that vitamin D, I need that, that kind of sun. We decided to move to Perth, and we had a really great group of friends there, and it was reconnecting with friends from, university time, so perhaps people that I hadn't seen for 5 or 6 years. And in that time, some of my values had changed, but I think looking back on it, I wasn't necessarily aware of that then. And you go, I guess backwards and connect with these people again, which at the time, during university was really fun and amazing. But, you kind of I was getting to a bit of an age where I was like, okay, cool. What direction more am I going in life? And not saying that those values were coming backwards, but you kind of get a little bit caught in what you did for, I guess, pleasurable activities as friends back then, like going to festivals and, weekends were, quite party focused and that sort of thing. So there was, I look at that time I had in Perth, just under 4 years, and it was a really testing time of my life. I think that mixed in with, the nomadic work that I chose to do by going up and working in the mining industry, and, initially doing my passion in health and movement, but then losing that passion and just going into construction work and, getting on really long rosters and, looking at friendships that, broke down because of that. So that was a testing time. For sure.
I think it's interesting, like when we travel, we talk about that life experience that we gain, and then when we can come back to our home or our older friends as such, like it can be easy to, in some ways, fall back into this routine of things as they once were. But at the same time, because of these experiences that have helped shape us, that old dynamic no longer fits us. So there's kind of this, if internal battle is the right word, but basically it just doesn't gel. And like you say, there were kind of things that you weren't necessarily aware of that had changed for you, that kind of made it click less, shall we say. What did you do to mitigate that experience, should we say?
Well, I had it was actually friends that kind of, can I use the word saved me? I guess so. It was the breakdown of a relationship that I had in Perth, to, like, these are people that I consider to be one of my dearest friends. They decided to fly me home to New Zealand for the New Year's break, and we rented a yacht and sailed out to Waiheke for the time. So it was I was super low, and they bought my flights and flew me over, and I was just like, wow, this is what a gift. And then to plug into New Zealand at that time of year as well, is for anybody that's lived overseas, you always miss New Zealand at that time. And to have that 2-week experience here with friends that genuinely love you so dearly, to return to Perth. And I spoke about this the other day. I remember that moment when I was traveling in the taxi from the Perth airport to my house where my stuff was. And I was like, this is not home for me. Like, I had no connection. And I was like, I just felt, a lot of different negative emotions about where I was at that time. Blessed enough that I had a flight home to New Zealand for a friend's wedding 4 weeks later. And I think that trip over that New Year's gave me the strength to go, right, in 3 weeks' time, I've changed that flight to a one-way flight and I'm returning to New Zealand. Not to say that when I got home to New Zealand, I was like, oh, it's all happy and roses. Like I remember being super lost applying for a visa for Holland, but I was outside that age group of 31. I applied for AUT University to look at osteopathy training post-grad. But I think that was that moment of, friends doing something quite grand and flying me home and, being around me to support me with just pure love. It was just genuineness. And then, that moment in that taxi ride going, I had that time and space to be able to like, man, this doesn't feel homely. Yeah.
And like, I mean, you talked about having that strength. I would almost say, and just having that space to actually appreciate the dynamic you were in to the dynamic you could be in. And too often we get stuck in an environment and we get bogged down and we don't necessarily know how to get out of it, what we need to focus on, whether it's the job that we're doing, whether it's the people we're surrounding ourselves, whether it's just the place and the environment and what we're exposed to. So I think it's great that your friends were able to be there and support you in the way that you needed at that time. And I would like to think that people out there generally have close connections that allow for that to happen. Fortunately, it's not always the case. And I think true friendship, in essence, is how people respond during those difficult times, and whether they're there for you. Because you might have those people who are, I say, friends of convenience, or they just happen to be in the place and you get along and stuff, but there's not really that deep connection. When you talk about your values piece, I mean, a little bit on reflection, but have you sort of identified values that you have quite strongly that you then look for in others in order to create that bond?
Yeah, I guess, once the dust settled and I returned to New Zealand, and it was, at that same time, the universe was like, right, a good friend of mine, we had this business idea of starting up our project, which is starting soon. We just spewed all this sort of raw data of what we kind of thought it would look like into a Google Drive. And, really importantly through that, it came out our values in a business setting. And because this was, once we started looking at it, it was like, oh, this is quite a big project. Our values were really, really important as a business to get right in between us. First and foremost, to figure out if we can do business together as friends, which does sometimes get a bit of a bad rep. So I think, figuring out what those values were as a business, first and foremost, gave me the space to go, okay, what are my values as a person? I was feeling really settled living here in New Zealand. And, I think, what makes you tick and what makes you feel happy and, kind of what your values are and things like that. But to maybe write those things down or plug into them and that sort of thing is really important. Going back to what I said before about, me going, oh, how do I make friends? Okay, cool, I'll go join a football club. Why? Because I like football, but I also know I'm going to get some social connection from that. So, there's a value that comes from there, that purpose. I didn't sit down and write, cool, these are my values. I just, I was kind of needing some people around me. So I did that, So,
And look, at the same time, if you can, and like, I guess if you're feeling stuck and you're not too sure where to go, writing down those values can help, because what you can do is you can, I guess, look at the situation that's there and see where the values are out of alignment, and then potentially make a step forward. I mean, you were fortunate in your situation that you knew what you needed to do in that situation. I think that maybe came down through your experience of finding yourself in that situation previously, perhaps.
Yeah, I think just I've played football since I was 4 years old, and thanks to my parents of nurturing that enthusiasm for that as a child, and as a teenager, putting that time and effort into me to take me to trainings, and they could see that natural ability with that.
Yeah.
That flowed on as a programming through my adult life, because it has tested me over the last couple of years. The alcohol side of social sport in New Zealand, as men, and that programming that's associated with that. Do we go into that now on this chat? I don't know, maybe room for another one. But it was something that it does lift me up and that sort of thing. So
I think let's leave that for another conversation. I think, because that's a whole nother topic unto itself. I guess for someone who perhaps isn't necessarily into the group sports, they're struggling to build connections, perhaps they're a little bit shyer and not so out there. Would you have any suggestions as to how they might go about building a tribe around?
Most definitely. It's again creating some space to think about those things that currently make you happy. And I talk about these things change on a seasonal basis, because what makes you and I happy in the summer about going to the beach and maybe surfing and lying on the beach and having that social connection with friends in the sun. We can't go do that today because we would be practicing Wim Hof and be kind of cold, and our wives would get upset and the kids would get sick and that sort of thing. So it's important that creating some time and space to write those things that change on could be 4 times a year that this would be changing. But it's okay, what are those things? For someone that doesn't enjoy sport, it could be getting out into the bush. So it's like, right, cool. How do I get the motivation to do that? Cool. Does there some walking groups? Well, I don't really like walking around the city, but it's more of the bush side. Okay, cool. Is there some hiking groups or tramping groups that go on a fortnightly basis that are local that I could get involved with? All of a sudden, those people that are going to those groups are like-minded. And there's, you're in that space of the potential there to make connection. What else? Is it... you've got to get that list first. That's first and foremost. And it's sitting down and going, what are those things? Is it I enjoy gardening? Cool. Can we get in touch with a gardening group? Or, is it searching? It's kind of searching for those like-minded groups, like-minded people. No,
that's great. Cool. And you kind of touched on a bit of a project you're working on at the moment. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that might, come into play for someone who's looking to build their own tribe?
So we, over the last 4 years, my business partner Jimmy and I, and good friend, decided to revisit a dream that we've had about 14 years ago. So with, as I said before, my group of brothers that we connected with at university, we were sitting around a campfire down in southern Hawke's Bay one New Year's, and looking at the year ahead, a lot of our friends were heading to different universities to do their placements. So we had a doctor, physio, dentist, some personal trainers, sports scientists, and massage therapists, and that sort of thing. And we just had built this love for each other. Because we'd kind of come with that first stage of coming out of the nest, having to cook for each other and pay bills and fall in love for the first time and fall out of love and, have no money and lend people money. And there was all that sort of adult learning. So, we identified that we just were awesome together. And it was like, how can we continue this, going forward into our professions? We kind of identified as you're a doctor and, people need fitness and, people need their teeth cleaned and we need some massage. So we're like, man, we could create a little bit of a health hub here. So that kind of got planted then. And then, 9 years happened and we all the majority of us kind of traveled together around the world, which is a blessing. But then career stuff happened, family stuff happened, children stuff happened. And it wasn't until I decided to return to New Zealand and Jimmy sparked up a convo and he said, why don't we revisit this? Jimmy and I had done the same degree together, and I had gone down the personal training route and then more into human behavior and human movement and not so much gym-based setting.
Yep.
And Jimmy had gone down personal training route, gym management route, gym ownership route. So in terms of that business knowledge and business experience, we kind of complemented each other really well.
Yeah.
So it started off just, putting a whole bunch of info into that Google Drive and going, have we got something here? Employed a business coach. He looked at it and was like, yeah, there's the possibility here. We identified Tauranga as a place that we would love to live.
Yes.
And a growing population.
Yes.
And after growing up over in the Waikato, you'd come here in the summer, it would be beautiful, but it still, for me, had a older generation vibe. So, we came down and we did some mystery shopping, we did some reconnaissance missions, and it was like, wow, like the young professional and young families who are choosing lifestyle more are actually moving here.
Yep.
So identified Papamoa, and the project that we are 8 weeks away from opening, which has been 4 years in the making, which has been 14 years in the pipeline, is called ReDefined. So we are a health movement well-being centre, and I guess our target age group is that kind of late 20s onwards. So it's people that have had that experience in movement in some format, generally probably through sport in New Zealand, or life has made them build muscle in areas, with trade and occupations and things like that. And it's giving people a different set of eyes on what health, movement, and well-being means. So we draw a lot of our philosophy from the blue zones, so the areas in the world that people are living the longest, happiest and healthiest, and the consistent traits between those demographics as to why that's happening. And when you look at that research and you see, obviously movement and nutrition are parts of the pie, but actually, knowing why you get up in the morning in terms of your purpose, knowing what you do in terms of to de-stress, knowing who you hang out with, do they serve you, knowing what are you doing to leave the planet in a better state for your children and their children. When you start linking all that stuff together, you can see how much that affects the central nervous system. And all of a sudden, if we start putting that central nervous system in the right direction, people start seeing the results in different ways. So that's our project. We've set up a class-based model to support and guide people through that. So we're looking obviously at the movement side of things, and I guess group fitness is the easy way to kind of explain it, but people can relate to. But then also along the lines of mind, body, yoga, guided meditation, dance, and then movement. Natural human movement in that setting.
Wow. It sounds like there's a lot going on, and I think there will be opportunities for a lot of different people to get involved. So I'm looking forward to coming on to that opening of that.
Thanks.
Listen, thank you so much for coming today and having a bit of a chat with me. And it sounds like we might be having a few more chats in the future, the way things have gone. Is there anything that you'd want to leave the audience with today before we call it?
There's one quote that kind of really resonated with me a few years ago when I heard it, and especially around the topic that we've been talking about today with values and alignment and finding your tribe. And it was, when you disconnect from those people, that person or that subject, you're only reconnecting with yourself. And I think that's really important for people to kind of ponder on and think about, because it goes against that kind of mammalian brain of us wanting to be vulnerable and maybe have less people around us, but if we disconnect from those people that aren't actually serving our current values in life, we're only reconnecting with ourselves and how we feel. And yet we may be vulnerable for a while, but if you start plugging into that list of what actually is that does make you happy and your values, and you put yourself out there to those groups that that you've identified that do make you happy, then you're actually building a support network around you of like-minded people.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.